On Sunday, November 7th, I was watching a football game. My Ann was out walking the dog, so I was home alone. I developed a sudden, complete numbing of my left side. My left arm was completely shot. And I broke out in a profuse sweat. And doing what every intelligent person would do, I got in my car and I drove myself to a hospital instead of calling paramedics. And they did diagnose me eventually that it wasn't a heart attack, that it was a blood clot in my left, whatever this is, subclavian?
Brachial artery.
Brachial artery. And they tried to break it up with drugs, and finally, 4 or 5 days later, they surgically removed it.
The first time I met Mitch was at another hospital. I had actually been called in as a second opinion to see Mitch. He'd been in this other hospital for about a week and nothing really was happening. He had been diagnosed with this terrible problem called an aortic dissection. The dissection is the aorta, the major blood vessel coming out of the heart. It's split into layers, and the dissection had gone all the way up into his arch, all the head and the neck blood vessels, and it actually gone out to the left arm, making him require a surgery on the left arm. But anyway, after I saw Mitch at this other hospital and recognized what a bad problem he had, it was apparent that he was going to need a very major surgery.
I really need to tell you how I felt when I first saw the angiogram, that there was something major, major wrong. I was trying to absorb it all. I didn't really believe it, but I do have some faith in the medical profession, and I felt that these people around me were professionals, and they were reading what I did not understand, and they were reading it correctly. And I just thought, how are we going to address this? What are we going to do?
When I talked to Mitch and his wife Ann about this at the other hospital, I said, listen guys, you're in for a huge operation. You're not at the right spot. I need to move you to another hospital to do this huge operation. Mitch's wife Ann looked at me like I had 3 heads. So I spent probably 2 hours drawing pictures, going over stats, explaining this, explaining that, trying to get them to understand the magnitude of the problem that he had.
On one hand, it's one thing when you're in a debilitated state and they say, we're going to need to do this and make you feel better. To go from a state where you're feeling terrific and know what they're going to do is going to cause you almost irreparable damage, or damage that's going to take over a year or 2 to even get back to somewhat normal to where you were. It just was a very, very difficult thing for me to accept.
You know, when somebody comes to you and says, well, I'm going to cut your chest open and it's an 8-hour surgery and we're going to have to freeze your brain and then wait for you to defrost, and you've never met this person and you've never met anybody associated with this person, you just go, excuse me? So our cardiologist, who we did know, suggested that we call for a consult, and he brought us to Dr. Caskey.
When I spoke to Ann and Mitch about this surgery, and I tried to explain the magnitude of what we needed to do, initially Mitch said, there's no way. I was riding my bike last week. I was a healthy, happy guy. How can you possibly tell me that I need an operation of this magnitude? Now, on the other hand, Ann, his wife, who is an incredibly intelligent woman and very analytical, had done a little bit of research. She obviously knew what was going on, and she knew exactly what we were talking about.
When you do meet the surgeon who's going to do this to you, you have to have some sort of faith and trust and rapport. And we just felt that he was a decent person, as in addition to being a consummate surgeon. And when you're looking at something as drastic as this, you want that, because you don't want your surgeon to just do the surgery and then leave. You want that person to be there for you, to explain things to you, to show up. And he did all those things. And the last thing Dr. Caskey said to me was, don't worry, I'll give you your Mitch back.
Okay, so when we finally got Mitch into the operating room, what we did is that we hooked him up to the heart-lung machine through the artery that comes in from the right side. Then we opened his chest down the middle. We then cooled him down to 20 degrees. To get Mitch that cold, we had to pack his head in ice. We filled up his thoracic cavities around his lungs with ice saline. And when we actually got him down to 20 degrees, we turned the heart-lung machine off. So at that point, Mitch had no circulation, none whatsoever. He was clinically dead. And so when that occurs, you got about 45 minutes to do your reconstruction. And so what we did is we took a piece of prosthetic tubing and it re-established his arch. We took one branch of the prosthetic tubing up to his carotid artery and re-implanted that. We took another branch up to this side so we could feed the carotid artery on this side. And then we took the main branch and hooked it to his thoracic aorta. Once all that was reconstructed, we put a new valve in Mitch's heart, and then we sewed that end of the tubing onto the heart. Once that occurs, we restart the heart and start to warm him up and let his heart start to recover from all that surgery. Once he is fully recovered and fully warmed back up to a normal temperature, we wean him off the heart-lung machine. It's a very complex surgery. It takes a lot of skill, a lot of time, and a lot of experience to do that. Once Mitch got on his feet and really truly began to recover, he took off. He has been extremely active. He has made a recovery that's beyond belief. I mean, a lot of people that have this kind of surgery typically will linger, and it'll take them months and months and sometimes as much as a year to fully recover. Mitch and his wife have made it their life's work to basically change lifestyles and to make sure that the quality of his life is better. And so today Mitch is out hiking, biking. He is doing fabulous.
I have to say, everything that transpired I took with a certain amount of disbelief. That's all there is to it. That's just the way I am. I just simply was having a very hard time understanding that I felt so well. I mean, I was 63 years old, and I felt really great. I was doing a lot of weightlifting, I was bike riding, I was spinning, I was in great shape. And when they're telling me I've got this life-threatening condition that I have absolutely no symptoms for, no pain, no sweating, no nothing, it was a very difficult decision and a very difficult thing to accept.
So I want to take this last opportunity to say to Mitch and to Ann that I feel blessed to be able to take care of you and participate in your care. I'm glad that you're doing so well. The fact that you're hiking and biking makes me feel very satisfied inside that we did the right thing and we did it all together. So both of you have a happy life, and Ann, thanks for the quilt.
I'd like to thank Dr. Caskey for making this day possible and making all the days of my life possible. I appreciate it.
And I'd like to thank Dr. Caskey for keeping his promise, which was, you'll get your Mitch back. And I did.